Every election season, we see the ads, hear the speeches, and watch the debates. But behind the scenes, there's a hidden force shaping our choices: super PACs. Did you know that in 2020, super PACs spent over $2.7 billion on ads and campaign efforts? That's more than the entire budget of some small countries. And the craziest part? The majority of that money came from just a few wealthy individuals. Super PACs don't have to answer to voters, and they can raise and spend unlimited funds to push their agendas. But how much power do they really have? Can they sway the outcome of an election? The truth is, super PACs can decide who wins and who loses, often without us even realizing it. In this video, we're going to dig into the hidden world of super PACs and reveal the shocking tactics they use to control elections. From the billionaire donors behind the scenes to the dirty tricks that manipulate public opinion, you won't believe the impact they have. Stick with us as we uncover how these shadowy groups are shaping the future of American democracy. Chapter 1: Money Talks, the shadow campaigns you never see. When it comes to elections, we often focus on the candidates and their speeches. But there's another force shaping our political landscape: super PACs. These political action committees spend millions of dollars to sway voters, often without anyone realizing the full extent of their influence. Super PACs don't coordinate directly with candidates, but they can run their own campaigns, pouring money into ads that sway public opinion. In the 2020 election alone, super PACs spent over $1.5 billion on ads, according to OpenSecrets.org. That's more than a third of all money spent on election-related ads. Super PACs are allowed to raise and spend unlimited funds, making them powerful players. But who is funding these shadow campaigns? The answer might surprise you. A large portion of super PAC funding comes from a small group of wealthy donors. In fact, just 100 people donated more than $2 billion to super PACs in the 2020 cycle. This means a tiny group of individuals and corporations can have an outsized influence on elections, deciding which issues get attention and which candidates rise to the top. One of the most powerful tactics used by super PACs is creating ads that target voters' emotions. These ads often use fear, anger, or hope to change the way people think. Whether it's attacking an opponent's character or promising a better future, super PAC ads aim to connect on an emotional level, making them more effective than traditional political ads. In the 2016 presidential election, a super PAC supporting Hillary Clinton spent nearly $100 million on ads that attacked Donald Trump. At the same time, pro-Trump super PACs were running ads that highlighted the weaknesses of Clinton's campaign. These ads didn't just focus on policies, they were designed to make voters feel a certain way about the candidates. Super PACs also use dark money to further their influence. This money comes from non-profit organizations that aren't required to disclose their donors. As a result, voters often don't know who's funding these campaigns. Dark money plays a huge role in shaping elections, especially in close races where every ad could make a difference. Super PACs have become a cornerstone of modern campaigns, shifting the balance of power in politics. While they give voices to people who might not otherwise have one, they also raise serious questions about the fairness of our democracy. Are elections truly decided by voters, or are they shaped by a few wealthy individuals behind the scenes? Chapter 2: The Billionaire Club, who's really behind the curtain? So, who's footing the bill for these massive super PACs? It's not your average American voter. The top 1% of earners contribute a significant amount of the funding, turning the political process into a game for the wealthy. One prominent example is Sheldon Adelson, a casino magnate who spent nearly $200 million on political campaigns in 2016 alone. Adelson's spending was not an isolated case. According to the Center for Responsive Politics, in 2020, just 10 wealthy individuals and their families donated more than $600 million to super PACs. This is a staggering amount when you consider that, in many races, every dollar counts. The power of these wealthy donors is hard to ignore, especially when they fund ads that flood the airwaves during election seasons. Corporations also play a significant role in funding super PACs. While the law prohibits corporations from donating directly to candidates, they can fund super PACs, which gives them a way to influence elections. For example, large corporations like Koch Industries and AT&T have been known to donate millions to super PACs that support candidates who favor their business interests. The issue isn't just about how much money is spent, it's about the way money shapes political discourse. Super PACs can elevate a candidate who might otherwise go unnoticed. They can also bury candidates who don't have the resources to compete. This creates a system where the wealthiest have the most power, and smaller voices struggle to be heard. In 2018, the Political Action Committee, Indivisible Project, found that the top 10 donors gave nearly 30% of all Super PAC money during the midterm elections. This means that a small group of people are driving the narrative, making it more difficult for ordinary voters to have an equal say in the process. The influence of super PACs has led some critics to argue that the US political system is increasingly becoming a plutocracy, a government controlled by the rich. With so much money flowing into elections, it's easy to see why people feel that political power is out of their hands. Despite these concerns, some argue that super PACs are simply an extension of free speech. After all, the Supreme Court's 2010 Citizens United ruling allowed super PACs to spend unlimited amounts on political campaigns, claiming that limiting this spending would infringe on free speech. This decision has had far-reaching consequences, leading to the explosion of dark money in politics. Chapter 3: The Dirty Dozen. Top tactics used by super PACs. Super PACs have a toolbox full of tactics to influence voters. One of the most effective strategies is the use of negative ads. These ads are designed to attack an opponent's character, often exaggerating flaws or distorting the truth. Negative ads are incredibly effective, as studies show that people are more likely to remember negative information than positive. In 2012, a super PAC supporting Mitt Romney's campaign aired an ad attacking President Obama, claiming he had failed on jobs. The ad was so successful that it helped sway voters in swing states, contributing to Romney's strong showing despite ultimately losing the election. Another tactic is astroturfing. This refers to the creation of fake grassroots movements that appear to be driven by ordinary citizens but are actually funded by powerful interests. Super PACs can use astroturfing to create the illusion of widespread support for a candidate or issue, even if that support is only coming from a small group of wealthy donors. A super PAC called Americans for Prosperity, backed by the Koch brothers, used astroturfing to build support for tax cuts in 2017. They organized rallies and events that seemed to be led by everyday Americans, but in reality, the Koch brothers were behind the entire operation. This tactic allowed them to manipulate public opinion without revealing their true involvement. Super PACs also use data-driven strategies to target specific groups of voters. They can analyze vast amounts of data to identify voters who are most likely to support a particular candidate or cause. This allows them to create highly personalized ads that resonate with individual concerns, increasing the likelihood of voter engagement. For example, during the 2016 election, data analytics company Cambridge Analytica worked with the Trump campaign to target voters based on their personalities and psychological profiles. This hyper-targeting approach was controversial, but it proved to be effective in swaying undecided voters in key swing states. One of the more subtle tactics is issue advocacy. Super PACs don't always support a specific candidate, sometimes they focus on pushing a particular issue, like healthcare or immigration. By flooding the airwaves with ads about a specific issue, they can shift the focus of the election and sway voters toward candidates who align with their views. In the 2020 election, super PACs supporting Joe Biden used issue advocacy to focus on healthcare, hoping to sway voters who were dissatisfied with the Affordable Care Act. These ads painted Biden as the candidate who would improve healthcare for all, a message that resonated with key voter demographics. Super PACs are also skilled at exploiting media coverage. By running ads that generate controversy, they can earn media attention, which amplifies their message. This creates a feedback loop where the media reports on the ads, and the ads gain more visibility, even if they're controversial or misleading. In 2018, a super PAC supporting Alabama Senate candidate Doug Jones aired an ad that generated widespread attention. The ad, which featured footage of Jones's opponent, Roy Moore, was designed to cast doubt on Moore's character. The media coverage helped Jones's campaign gain traction in the final days before the election. These tactics show just how far super PACs will go to sway elections. Whether it's manipulating the media, using data analytics, or creating fake grassroots movements, super PACs have a vast array of tools to influence the political process. And, as long as they can raise unlimited funds, they'll continue to shape our elections in ways we might never fully see. Chapter 4: The Silver Bullet. How Super PACs Decide Elections. Super PACs have an almost magical power to decide elections, especially in tight races. Their ability to spend unlimited money means they can flood the airwaves with ads that directly influence voters. In a 2016 study, researchers found that 30% of all campaign ads were funded by super PACs, showing just how much sway they have over public opinion. This heavy spending is most noticeable in swing states, where every vote counts. One of the best examples of super PAC influence was the 2012 presidential race. Pro-Obama super PACs spent $400 million, a significant chunk of the campaign's budget. Meanwhile, pro-Romney super PACs spent $300 million. These massive ad blitzes weren't just about promoting candidates, they were about changing minds. The power of super PACs to reach millions of voters with targeted ads makes them one of the most powerful forces in modern politics. But it's not just about who spends the most. The key is how that money is spent. For example, in 2020, super PACs supporting former President Trump used highly targeted messaging in swing states like Michigan and Pennsylvania. The ads focused on economic recovery, painting Trump as the savior of the American worker. By contrast, Biden's supporters used ads that emphasized Trump's handling of the pandemic. These ads didn't just inform, they persuaded. And in crucial battleground states, they made a difference. In many elections, the real impact of super PACs is felt not in the general public but in local races. In down-ballot elections, a well-funded super PAC can make a huge difference. Take the 2018 midterms, where super PACs spent over $1 billion on ads. Much of this money was funneled into Senate and House races. The result? A record number of women and people of color were elected to Congress, thanks in part to super PAC-funded ads that highlighted key issues like healthcare and immigration. Super PACs are especially powerful in close races. A report by the Brennan Center for Justice found that in 2016, super PACs were responsible for tipping the scale in several battleground states. In Nevada, for example, Hillary Clinton's campaign benefited from a huge super PAC ad buy, helping her win the state by a narrow margin. Without that financial backing, it's possible the election could have swung in the other direction. Another way super PACs decide elections is by suppressing the vote. This doesn't mean directly preventing people from voting, but rather influencing public opinion to decrease voter turnout for the opposing side. Negative ads targeting a candidate's credibility can depress voter enthusiasm. In some races, super PACs have successfully made voters feel disillusioned or disconnected from the political process, leading them to stay home on election day. The ability of super PACs to tilt the election in favor of one candidate or another raises important questions about democracy. When money plays such a key role in determining who wins and loses, it's hard to argue that the playing field is level. In fact, super PACs might be making the system even more skewed, where wealth, not votes, decides the outcome. Chapter 5, The Law of the Land, Legal Loopholes and Super PACs. When we talk about super PACs, we can't ignore the laws that allow them to operate. The biggest change came in 2010, with the Supreme Court's Citizens United vs. FEC ruling, which gave corporations and unions the green light to spend unlimited amounts of money on political ads. Before this decision, there were strict limits on political spending. But after Citizens United, super PACs could raise and spend as much money as they wanted, without fear of limits or restrictions. One of the key aspects of the ruling was that it recognized corporations and unions as people, meaning they have the right to free speech just like individuals. The court believed that limiting financial contributions was a violation of this right. This decision unleashed a flood of money into American politics, especially in presidential campaigns. In 2012, for example, super PACs spent more than $1 billion on the presidential race alone. But it's not just about the legal framework. Another important decision came in SpeechNow.org vs. FEC, 2010, which paved the way for the creation of super PACs. The court ruled that people could donate unlimited amounts of money to organizations that operate independently of political candidates. This decision made it possible for billionaires and corporations to fund political causes without directly coordinating with campaigns. While Citizens United and Speech Now created a system of unlimited spending, they also created a system of secrecy. Under current law, super PACs are required to disclose their donors, but they can hide behind dark money organizations. These organizations don't have to reveal their donors, and they often funnel money into super PACs to keep the sources of funding anonymous. This lack of transparency is one of the biggest concerns raised by critics of super PACs. In fact, dark money has become one of the defining features of modern elections. According to the Center for Responsive Politics, dark money groups spent $145 million during the 2020 elections. And this figure only accounts for groups that are required to disclose their spending, meaning the true total is likely even higher. This lack of transparency makes it nearly impossible for voters to understand who is funding these massive political campaigns. Despite these legal challenges, the influence of super PACs continues to grow. While some states have tried to regulate their activities, the federal government has done little to address the issues raised by unlimited campaign spending. Many lawmakers argue that it's impossible to level the playing field when a handful of wealthy individuals control the majority of political donations. There's a growing debate in the US about whether these legal precedents should be overturned. Proponents of campaign finance reform argue that unlimited spending undermines democracy. They claim that the wealthiest Americans have too much influence over the political process. On the other hand, defenders of super PACs argue that spending money on elections is a form of free speech. And as long as it's legal, they say, there's no reason to limit it. Chapter 6, Democracy or Plutocracy? The future of American elections. So, what does the future hold for American elections? Will they remain a contest of ideas, or are we headed toward a system where money is the ultimate deciding factor? As super PACs continue to grow in influence, it's becoming clear that money is playing an increasingly dominant role. But the question is this fair? Some experts argue that the rise of super PACs has transformed American politics into a plutocracy, where the rich hold all the power. In 2016, a study by the nonpartisan group Demos found that the wealthiest 1% of Americans were responsible for 40% of all political donations. This means that a small group of people has disproportionate power over elections and policies. On the flip side, there's the argument that super PACs give individuals and organizations the ability to participate in the political process in a meaningful way. After all, if someone has the resources to support a candidate or cause they believe in, why shouldn't they be allowed to do so? In theory, super PACs can give voices to those who might otherwise be drowned out by larger political machines. Still, many people feel that the system is rigged against ordinary voters. When a few wealthy donors can control the narrative and dominate media coverage, it's easy to see why some Americans feel disconnected from the political process. According to a 2018 Gallup poll, 74% of Americans said that they were unhappy with the amount of money in politics, showing a clear demand for change. Reform is possible, though. There have been some attempts to level the playing field. For example, several states have passed laws requiring greater transparency from super PACs. Others have proposed public financing of campaigns, which would allow candidates to run without relying on wealthy donors. These reforms are still in their infancy, but they represent a glimmer of hope for those who want to see a more fair and democratic system. Despite the challenges, there's hope for the future. If enough people demand change, we may see new policies that reduce the influence of money in elections. Whether it's through transparency, caps on spending, or public funding, reforms could help ensure that elections remain a battle of ideas, not just bank accounts. As the battle between super PACs and democratic ideals rages on, one thing is clear: the role of money in politics is only going to increase. How we choose to respond to that reality will shape the future of American democracy. Will it remain a government of the people, or will it become one of the wealthy few? Only time will tell. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the political world, where we unpack the hidden forces shaping your vote. Stay tuned for the next episode.